Know how much of a Scottish heritage buff I am, so it's always appropriate, in my opinion, to have pipes and drums here. Ran across a poem a while back from out of the Scottish American Military Society magazine called The Patriot. It's an organization for U.S. Armed Forces servicemen who have Scottish ancestry. This was written by Dennis Fritzinger. The Pipes of Scotland. I hear a sound come to my ear, a far-off sound, both piercing and clear. Across the breaks, across the weir, the pipes of Scotland. They make my little feet want to dance. They bring me thoughts of high romance. So I jig, so I prance, to the pipes of Scotland. Oh, where far off the heather grows, and ivy wreaths the cottage rose, and honey from the thistle flows, the pipes of Scotland. I gave my own true love a kiss, settled down in married bliss. Now there's just one thing that I do miss, the pipes of Scotland. And now we're here again from the pipes and drums of the Virginia Scots Guards as they do Amazing Grace. Major Lord David L. Hinton. They're going to do what's called the Guinness set from off their album Storm Over Richmond. Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all would join me in one stanza of Rock of Ages. It was Jefferson Davis's favorite hymn. Rock of Ages, cleft for me, let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy wounded side which flowed be of sin the double cure. Save from wrath and make me pure. We will now have our presentation of Wreath. Our announcer will be Michael Kidd. As he comes up here, if there are any wreaths that will be presented that are not yet in the program, please come up here. I'll give you all a short caveat. Gentleman behind me in the color guard, Doug Rayner, signs all of his emails with a caveat to the carpetbaggers. Just because you come down south and you marry a Southerner and raise family, does that mean your kids are Southerners? Just as if your cat gets in the oven and has kittens, it doesn't mean you get to call them biscuits. I guess that'd make it a cat-beat. I had to have some bad humor. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Give everyone a chance to get themselves set up. We've got, I think Everett said, we've got a record number of wreaths being presented this year, so quite a testament to Mr. Davis as well as the work of everyone involved with the committee. All right, let's get started. We've got a lot of wreaths to be presented. First, we have Mr. Bertram Hayes Davis of the Davis family. Mr. J.H. Cochran Jr. will be presenting. And do mind the wires on the ground, folks, as you come up. Don't want anyone tripping. Ms. Susan Townsend, President of the Virginia Division, United Daughters of the Confederacy. Mrs. Daniel E. Capron, President, Huntington Chapter number 150, UDC. Mr. J.H. Cochran Jr. presenting. Mrs. Ann Gill, Secretary of Petersburg, Chapter number 155, UDC. Mrs. Ronald Graves, President, H.A. Carrington, Chapter number 1055, UDC. Ms. Grace Elliott, Vice President, Halifax, Chapter number 1321, UDC. Mrs. Wallace L. Hudgens, President, Richmond, Stonewall Jackson, Chapter number 1705, UDC. Ms. Cynthia Gay Ledbetter, President, Ms. Lindsay Horn of Centennial Murray, Chapter number 2296, UDC. Ms. Bonnie Reeves, Jefferson Davis, Chapter number 2477, UDC. Ms. Ann W. Jackson, President, Colonel John S. Mosby, Chapter number 2628, UDC. Mr. R. Michael Givens, Commander-in-Chief, International Headquarters, Sons of the Confederate Veterans. Mr. B. Frank Ernest, Commander, Army of Northern Virginia, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. J. Michael Poland, Commander, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Larry Logan, Oklahoma Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Everett W. Ellis, presenting. Mr. Wallace C. Hutchins, Chaplains Corps, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Kinsey Joyner, Commander, 1st Brigade, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Everett W. Ellis, Commander, 2nd Brigade, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Ronald Graves, Commander, 7th Brigade, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Ed Willis, Commander, Lee Jackson Camp Number 1, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Mike Armstead, 13th Virginia Mechanized Cavalry Camp Number 9, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Watch your step, gentlemen. Mr. Tony Griffin, Commander, Isle of Wight Avengers Camp Number 14, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Johnny Anderson, Past Commander, AP Hill Camp Number 167, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Alfred Kaisha, Commander, Stonewall Camp Number 300, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Richard Hines, Commander, Jefferson Davis Camp Number 305, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Kenny Harris, Princess Anne Camp Number 484, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Keith Axton, Commander, Old Brunswick Camp Number 518, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Bill Cruz, John M. Jordan, camp number 581, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. J. Edwin Ray, Commander, JEB Stewart, camp number 1343, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. John Moody, Commander, Powhatan Troop Camp Number 1382, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Volpe Poikin, Urquhart Gillette Camp Number 1471, Sons of Confederate Veterans.
We are going to read this twice. They haven't done it like that before.
Mr. Boyd W. Hubbard, Commander, Bedford Rifle Grays Camp Number 1475, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Mark Johnson, Commander, Norfolk County Grays Camp Number 1549, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Bill Brown, Commander, General Robert E. Lee Camp Number 1589, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Douglas L. Rainier, Adjutant, Mrs. Marie Yates and Mrs. Lorena Ellett, Captain William Latney, Camp Number 1690, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Michael Link, Botetourt Artillery Group, Camp Number 1701, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. J. Michael Pullen, Commander, Tom Smith, Camp Number 1702, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Jody Williams, J.R. Chambliss, Camp Number 1779, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Michael Virts, Commander, Major General Fitzhugh Lee, Camp Number 1805, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Bill James, Commander, Darling Beauregard, Camp Number 1813, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Ronald Graves, Commander, Charlotte County Grays, Camp Number 1964, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Joseph H. Wright, Jr., Color Sergeant, the Reverend Beverly Tucker Lacey, Camp Number 2141, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Darrell Starnes, Commander, Edwin Ruffin, Fire Eaters, Camp Number 3000, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Dave Ware, General George Pickett, Chapter 115, MOS&B. Mr. Everett W. Ellis, Chairman, Jefferson Davis Memorial Committee, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. William E. Ray Jr., Recording Secretary, J.E.B. Stewart Memorial Foundation. Ms. Diane E. Grimes, President, Virginia Society, Order of the Confederate Rose. Ms. Rhonda Smith, General Armstead Long, Chapter Number 6, Order of the Confederate Rose. Ms. Nikki Smith, Little Rebels and Roses, the Order of the Confederate Rose. Mrs. Nathaniel Madeline Withers, President, Stewart Mosby Historical Society. Mr. James H. Cochran, Jr., Member, Jefferson Davis Society. You'll find it. Mrs. Wallace L. Fran Hutchins, William Oliver Hayes Trust. Lieutenant Colonel William E. Ray, Life Member, J.E.B. Stewart, Chapter Number 24, Reserve Officers Association. Ms. Teresa Roan, Archivist, Museum of the Confederacy. Ms. Susan Hathaway, Ms. Linda Chance, Ms. Karen Cooper, the Virginia Flaggers. Mr. James H. Cochran, Jr., Captain and President, Nibbs Battery, Artillery Regiment, 1st Division, Army of Northern Virginia. Mr. Everett W. Ellis, Chairman, Jefferson Davis Memorial Committee, Virginia Division, Sons of Confederate Veterans. Mr. Edmund C. Pete Burris, President, Huguenot Springs Cemetery Foundation. Commander Cochran, I have a bone to pick with you. There is no such thing as a retired Marine. And anyone who knows a Marine knows exactly what I'm talking about. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And mine is 80 years old, so I know what I'm talking about. Sergeant Cliff Troutman of the United States Marine Corps, Ms. Susan Hathaway and Ms. Linda Chance, Wreaths Across America. Hoorah! Mr. James H. Cochran, Jr., President, New River Valley Alumni Chapter, Kappa Alpha Order.